They thought I was just the quiet wife who got lucky marrying a man on his way up. They thought I'd panic, beg, maybe cry when everything fell apart. What they didn't know was that while they were busy underestimating me, I was already writing the ending. And once you understand that the rest of the story hits very differently. It started on a Tuesday, the kind of day that feels ordinary until it splits your life in two. I was standing in a hospital hallway that smelled like disinfectant and burnt coffee, staring at 3 tiny monitors that refused to stay still. My triplets had been born too early, way too early. Every breath they took felt borrowed. I hadn't slept, not really, just closed my eyes in short, useless bursts while alarms decided whether to behave or ruin me. I kept telling myself, just get through the next hour, then the next. That's how survival works, you know what I mean? My husband Ryan was supposed to be there. At least that's what he said. He had this tone back then, reassuring, confident, like he had everything handled. I'll be there after this meeting, he'd say. Or, just one more thing at work. Then I'm all yours. At first I believed him. Why wouldn't I? This was the man who once swore he'd never miss anything important. Funny how definitions change. By the 3rd day, the nurses stopped asking where he was. They just wrote things down. Dates, times, presence, absence. Hospitals don't care about excuses, they care about patterns. I learned that fast. What Ryan didn't know was that I was carrying 2 lives at once. One was obvious right there in the NICU, fragile and terrifying and real. The other was something I'd buried years earlier under a different name. A different identity I didn't talk about because I wanted a normal life. I wanted to be chosen without footnotes. So I lived smaller than I had to. I worked a regular job. I split bills. I played the role perfectly. And Ryan never asked deeper questions. That should have told me something. The night everything finally cracked, one of my babies crashed hard. Real emergency. Doctors moving fast. Nurses calling out numbers, that awful sound when oxygen drops and time shrinks. I was pressed against the wall because there was nothing else I could do except stay out of the way and pray. My phone buzzed. Ryan's name. For half a second I thought maybe he feels this. Maybe he's calling because something in him knows his child needs him. I answered with shaking hands. I can't do this anymore, he said. Not, I'm scared. Not, I don't know how to help. Just that. Clean. Final. He told me he was exhausted, that he felt invisible, that his boss understood him in ways I didn't anymore. He said he deserved happiness. And the most surreal part, in the background I could hear cutlery soft laughter, the calm hum of a restaurant. Not a hospital. Not chaos. Comfort. I said his name once. That was it. He kept talking. About starting over, about sending money when he could, about how this wasn't what he signed up for. My child was fighting for air while he was opting out of fatherhood like it was a subscription. The call ended and I slid down the wall because my legs stopped working. My sister caught me before I hit the floor. Later, we realized the call had been recorded by accident. She'd grabbed my phone in the panic and hit record without knowing. She asked if I wanted to delete it. I looked at the incubator and said no. Not because I wanted revenge, because I knew deep down this was the moment no one would believe unless I could prove it. That was the pivot. The moment I stopped hoping he'd come back and started preparing for the version of reality where he didn't. I didn't scream. I didn't confront him. I documented. Missed visits. Texts that didn't line up with his stories. A hotel receipt that fell out of his jacket when he came home to grab clothes and said he'd been working late. Perfume that didn't belong to me. Each detail went into a quiet list on my phone. No drama. Just facts. I hired a private investigator the boring way. No hacking, no spying through windows, just timelines built from public records receipts and cameras in public spaces. I told her I didn't need dirt. I needed truth that could stand in a courtroom. She nodded and said, "Patterns don't lie." I liked her immediately. Meanwhile, Ryan was busy posting about new beginnings, champagne glasses, smiles that didn't reach his eyes. His new partner, my replacement, loved attention. She loved power even more. What she didn't know was that the company she worked for, the one Ryan thought was his golden ticket, was no longer what he thought it was. Remember, that other life I mentioned, the one I buried, turns out it was time to dig it back up. Quietly. Through layers of trusts and holdings I had acquired controlling interest in the parent company months earlier, not as revenge, as insurance, as survival. I didn't change how I dressed. I didn't announce anything. I just signed paperwork and kept sitting by my baby's beds. When the court filings hit, they hit hard. Emergency custody, temporary support, protective orders. The judge didn't care about Ryan's feelings. She cared about medical fragility and abandonment. The recording played once in that courtroom, and you could feel the air change. People don't like hearing someone walk away from responsibility in their own voice. Ryan showed up late to that hearing, still confident, still thinking he could talk his way through it. He glanced at me like he expected tears. I gave him nothing, just silence and documents. The corporate side moved slower, colder. Compliance reviews. Conflict of interest. Expense reports that didn't make sense. Promotions that happened too fast. When the board meeting finally happened, Ryan walked in smiling and walked out unemployed. His partner went on leave pending investigation. Power doesn't argue. It just removes access. Later, he called me angry shaking. "You could have told me," he said, "about the money, about everything. I wouldn't have left if I'd known." That sentence told me more than any affair ever could. I told him the truth. If money was the reason you'd stay, then staying was never love. Today, my children are stronger, bigger, loud in the best way. The monitors are quieter now. The fear hasn't vanished, but it no longer owns me. I didn't win by destroying anyone. I won by refusing to disappear when it would have been easier. Here's the part people argue about. Some say I went too far, that I should have forgiven him, that I used power unfairly. Others say I did exactly what any parent should do. I didn't ruin his life. I documented his choices and let systems built for accountability do their job. So let me ask you this. When someone walks away at your weakest moment, do they deserve another chance just because they regret losing comfort later? Or is walking away the choice that defines everything after? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear where you stand and if you've ever seen something like this play out in real life.